I've got my notes on my phone, so I'm not texting or anything. I'm just
no worries.
All right.
Notes. It'll be interesting to hear what notes you got on me. There's not too many notes out there about me, I don't reckon.
Well,
but let's find out.
Well, they're not. Yeah. They're not necessarily like asking you questions about your life or anything like that. They're more philosophical.
Right on.
Asking you philosophical
questions.
Yeah,
cool.
In fact, I wish that we would have had the mics recording for the last 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
There's plenty more if you want.
We might have to recover some of it.
Yeah.
Cover it again. What are you doing in the U.S.? Let's start there.
Well, I came over here for Patagonia reasons. I stocked the Patagonia shop in Torquay, and I know I've just connected with the factory over here, and they wanted me to shape some boards for some of their guys because they kept getting asked by the guys that work in Patagonia that, they wanted boards and stuff, and they offered to fly me over and make boards and to see how they do their epoxy stuff and all that. And I ended up here. I don't know how I ended up here. I ended up here, but that's where I end up most of the time. No idea how I got there, but I arrived there.
I guess I'm not super familiar with their board business. I know that they do. Fletcher Chenard makes boards under that label, but that's the only shaper that I know of. Do they also employ other shapers?
Well, to help out Fletch with his boards.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, they just do Fletcher's boards.
Gotcha.
They're not a big mass producing factory. They're a small factory. They're only pretty well doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And it's actually really cool to be in a space like that.
Is it?
Yeah. They pay their guys well. They get they get holiday pay. They get stuff that you don't hear about in a regular factory.
Yeah.
They get paid 6 days, and they've got food in the canteen every morning, and you know what I mean. It's it's sign me up for that.
Well, I think that's the way they run their whole business.
They do.
Yeah, so it's unusual.
It's incredible.
It's unusual for a company to run that way, full stop. But it's especially unusual for surfboard manufacturing.
Yeah, to get a paid holiday every year, that doesn't exist in the surfboard world. So it's really heartening to see that, because I know how hard guys in surfboard factories work. They all work hard, and to see them rewarded with some paid holiday leave or sick leave or any of that stuff, that's fantastic, because a lot of guys have had to work through their wives having kids and work through injury and all kinds of stuff. So seeing that's beautiful, mate. Yeah.
What we worry about, and we discuss on the podcast sometimes, is the industry is going to lose to skilled laborers because of that. So a lot of people here in Southern California who would prefer to work in surfboards can't afford to buy a home. And so they end up working construction instead, and that's just a shame. So
that's really true.
We don't know what the solution is other than maybe raising board prices. But does that always trickle down to the sander, to the laminator, to everybody along the way,
Well, all I know in my factory it would. I can't speak for an industry out there. So all I know is I've always, at the end of every week, I go around and thank every one of the guys that work on my boards, because my boards don't exist without them. I get the glory, and sometimes they're shit for my boards, but these guys get no thanks.
Right.
And, to see the price of boards versus what the guys actually making them get is people should just remember that when they ask for a deal on a board. If rock up and have a look at the cars in the car park of that factory, and if you're driving in with a better car, forget about it. Don't ask for anything. You know what I mean? These guys work through injury and through sickness, and they do a bloody great job. Factory guys, they're the best. Yeah.
And if we didn't have them, we'd be writing
we don't
crappy
have boards.
boards.
Well, maybe we do, but they're not made here, and you don't have a choice. And they're made poorly or whatever by whoever. You gotta be thankful for the guys that you don't know their names in board
So back to Patagonia.
Yeah.
So the boards that you built while you were there last week are labeled as Fletcher Chenard boards?
No, they're my boards.
Oh, they are?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But with Patagonia stickers on them, or how does that work?
No, they just wanted me to come over and make some boards for their staff. And
how cool is that?
Yeah. Well, it's a funny thing. So I'll kind of go a bit off track here.
Please.
So a couple of years ago, I couldn't get a surf shop to stock my boards anywhere. And this is when the Asian boards flooded the market in Australia anyway. And so I thought, fuck, what am I going to do? So I had to make my own shop, and I had a factory and all that stuff. So I had a shop, had a guy in the shop, had factory staff, everything like that. I was hating life because I just want to be a surfboard shaper. But to sell my boards, I needed a shop, I needed a factory, all that stuff. And and I was working 6 days a week, pretty well 10 hours a day. And I was hating it. And my lease was up in the next year. So I was like, fuck, what am I going to do? I can't keep this up. I hate life. I hate doing this. So I thought, one day I woke up and said, I don't know what to do. So what I'm going to do this year is I'm going to surf 300 times and the universe is going to tell me what to do, right? And so I just set about doing that. I started shaping my own boards first rather than last. I went surfing every day and I kind of just let the universe decide. So one day the guys from Patagonia came in my shop and said, we'd love you to stock our shop. Fuck, wow, because the universe has sent you in. So I don't need my shop anymore. Rad. And so I kept surfing, and one day a mate of mine was standing in the Winky Pop car park, and he said, Corey, I want to have a chat. I think I want to start my own factory. I went, you're kidding, right? And he said, yeah, no, I want to start my own factory. And so within a half an hour, we were back in his shed, and we were masking up his factory. So once I stopped fighting this idea of what am I going to do, Patagonia approached me and I stocked their shop, and my mate approached me and I built him a factory. He took all my staff and the universe solved it all. And that's how I kind of got in with Patagonia. They just walked in and said, can you stock our shop? So I did, and it kind of took care of itself. There's no business now here. This was the universe just kind of doing it for me.
When you decided that you were going to surf 300 times that year,
yep,
did you take a financial hit?
Doing things that way? Heavily, but I was taking a life hit. I'd already missed the first like nine, maybe 10 years of my son growing up, and I was willing to take the financial hit to I wasn't sleeping because I just didn't know what to do, So once I just gave up and just be comfortable with not knowing what to do, I took the financial hit, but I was finally getting the surfboards I wanted. I was surfing. My fitness was great. My boy was loving me being around, so was my girl. And the universe solved all the other problems that I needed to be solved. So, I took a financial hit, but I'm here somehow. You make it through.
Well, the reason I ask, I'm curious about the other factors that led you to make the reversal.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people suffer quietly for more than 10 years.
Yeah.
To the point that their kids hate them, to the point that,
I get that.
They've wasted 30.
I wish I had some deep thing. I just woke up.
Yeah.
I just woke up and said, I'm just going to go surfing and it's going to solve itself. That was as deep as the plan went. So I'd love that. There may be some ultimate wisdom in it, but I don't know what it is. I just woke up and I was sick of thinking about it.
I think it sounds super cheesy and cliche to say, but surfing does solve so much of it. And the more distant you get from surfing, then it becomes very blurry and gray, and you're like not sure. You're confused on how to solve it.
Yeah.
But I think your solution of I'm going to surf 300 days this year was the quick. I mean, that's the quickest way to find the solution.
It was the easiest decision to make.
Yeah.
You know, when the lease was up, and the last time my lease was up, they put the rent up $100 a week. You know, so I had to work even harder just to pay for the building and blah blah blah. So it was just the easiest decision to make. Just go surfing and it'll solve itself. And look, it did. And maybe that's luck, but maybe it is just like, you know.
Who's to say?
It's all luck, I guess.
Yeah. Who's to say?
Yeah.
So when it comes to being here and working with Patagonia,
the
only other thing I know about Fletcher Chenard's kind of ethos with board building was that he was doing that extruded polystyrene.
Yeah.
Is he still?
Oh, they're doing a bunch of stuff. So they're doing
because it was exclusively that for a period of time, right?
He was, yeah.
Okay.
They were working on their own blanks. They wanted to find a better way to make blanks.
Yeah.
So, they just wanted to do it differently. But you have a small talk with Vaughn and you realise he wants to do everything differently.
Of course.
So, I think maybe between him, he was on board before Fletch with doing that kind of stuff.
Okay.
You know, so, but yeah, it was really fascinating to be in that space and you know, even talking with Vaughn about, you know, different ways of looking at wetsuits now and what he's trying to develop now and all that kind of stuff. You're being around that, it gives you the confidence to get outside yourself a little bit and to push a bit harder in a certain direction, even when you think it's a bit weird, you know?
Yeah. That's his whole philosophy, right?
It's great. I love being around that.
You mentioned epoxy earlier, so are they only laminating with epoxy?
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
What do you use at home traditionally?
Everything.
Okay.
Everything. Everything in surfboards interests me. Everything in surfboards interests me. So, from construction to shape to fins to everything, as surfers, I feel like we're kind of really conservative with what we ride and how we ride them and what we should be riding. Now, for the life of me, I've never found this book that set all these rules for us about what you're meant to be doing. You know, there's traditional guys that say you should, you know, look backwards to look forwards. There's other guys that like don't look backwards, only look forwards. But, you know, we've all arrived in this spot all at the same spot, if you know what I mean. Like so for a perfectly, totally individual pursuit, we're all in the same space with it. And it's just a weird concept to me that we're free to ride whatever we want, how we want on waves, and we're all in the same spot together. It's just, what do you think? How did we get there? It's weird.
Well, I mean, you said I'm interested in all things about surfing, and my initial thought was, yeah, me too, but don't certain things work better than others?
Yeah.
And as I think through it and hear you go through it right now, they all work, kind of. Like,
they all work.
Like, you're right.
A surf mat works.
Yeah.
Yeah, a surf mat works beautifully, you know, and that's just a pillow of air. So, yeah, it's just a strange concept, and some of this is gifted to me from picking the brain of Derek Hind, who, you know, he used to just walk in our factory when Bells was about to be 10 foot, a day before it, Derek would rock up into our factory from nowhere. He'd just appear with boards and angle grinders.
Puff of smoke and he just appears in it.
Yeah, in a camper.
Right. And
he'd have these boards and he's like, I've got to fix these before the swell tomorrow. And he'd have an angle grinder out there and grinding it. And he'd surf Bells incredibly the next day on a board that, like, you'd never seen before. And he'd be the talk of the town. Yeah. Did you see Derek out at 10-foot Bells yesterday going sideways, doing 360s? And then he'd vanish. Gone. You know, to wherever the surf went next. And then he came into town. He'd school everybody on surfing big waves on a totally unique board in a totally unique way. He'd blow everybody's minds. And then once he left, just all systems back to normal. You know what I mean? So it is. It takes unique people to try unique stuff. It's hard to make a living making truly unique stuff.
Right.
It's nearly impossible.
There's no way to automate it.
No, and it's there's no way to sell it.
Right.
You can't sell. Go out and figure this out, but pay more than full price because it takes a lot more to build. So, you know, there's a lot of blockages to it being an individual pursuit, but there also at the same time isn't that many blockages for it being a totally individual pursuit. It really is. We are free to do it however we want, but there are so many prescribed things on what we should do. It's pretty amazing.
As soon as you add the parameters,
yeah,
they multiply and kind of fall in on themselves, and you limit yourself entirely. Like
back there,
the everything works philosophy.
Yep.
Applies if you believe everything works.
Yeah.
So for thinkers like Yvon Chouinard or Derek Hind, they come in, they break all the rules, and it works for them because they don't even recognize that there's rules.
Yeah.
But when you look at the opposite of that is the WCT, and you have to operate within these parameters in this time period. With a jersey on, and by the way, that means you can only ride a pointy thruster,
That's
and
it.
then nothing works.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting.
It works for such a small bracket of people. You know, that once you're outside of that bracket, then you're kind of like struggling to try to get in that bracket.
Right.
You're surfing
But
the
you've
wrong
already
board
lost.
for 10 too many years.
If you're struggling to get into somebody else's idea of what the bracket is, then you've already lost.
Yeah.
You need to be
Yeah.
a groundbreaker in order to do something meaningful.
That's where surfing, it's a weird lag that it's like nobody particularly wants to be a groundbreaker in surfing, but that's a horrific thought.
Yeah.
In the minds of many.
Let's start a little bit of a timeline. You mentioned that Derek used to come into the factory. It should be stated your dad operated a lamination factory, a glass shop basically from your childhood, right? Is that how you were introduced?
Yeah, absolutely. My dad's story is a really unique story. So he was actually Midget Farrelly's right-hand man.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So way back when he was Australia's first world champ, Dad was working with Midget all the way back then. I've still got airmail from Midget. I don't know the years, but when he was off competing and surfing, he was sending back all this mail from Hawaii to Dad with factory setups and how vacuums are attached to planers here.
Oh my gosh.
And my dad was hooking them up for him and sending back like measurements of surfboards and lifts, and Dad was making them and putting Midget's logos on them and selling them here.
Crazy.
So he started at the bottom at Midget's. He never, and it's the same now. Everybody that went into Midget's factory wanted to be a shaper or all that stuff. Dad was happy to start at sweeping the floors, and Midget saw that, and he put him the whole way through the process and ended up being his right hand man. And so he worked with Midget for many years, and then him and his mate, they got a school bus and they totally gutted it out, kitted it out as a surfboard factory on wheels, and they spent a couple of years driving down the eastern seaboard of Australia, doing ding repairs, abalone fishing, and making surfboards in car parks under the name Change Surfboards, which is now is my brand. But he made surfboards out of a school bus and all the way down the eastern seaboard till he got to Melbourne. And my mum actually crashed into the back of his bus, and that's how he met Mum in Melbourne.
Way.
Yeah. So, and lucky she didn't spark any fires, or the bus would have the most flammable car in the history
For
of.
sure.
Yeah. So that's how he met Mum, a good private Catholic schoolgirl, and met this hippie living in a surfboard factory on wheels. And they ended up kind of arriving in Torquay right when Quicksilver and Rip Curl were kicking off. And, you know, Rip Curl wanted to make surfboards, and my dad arrived in town right when that. So, yeah, he ended up making boards for, like, all the early Wayne Lynch stuff and all the early Rip Curl stuff. And, he was there at kind of ground zero in Torquay when it all kicked off.
And he was shaping too, not just...
He was shaping, but mainly glassing, making fins and all that stuff. So I was born into a family where my dad had a surfboard factory on wheels and rolled into town. So I've never known a life outside of surfboards and surfing. So whenever I was sick and I couldn't go to school, they couldn't afford a day off. So I'd be in the factory. And at 8 years old, I was drawing fin panels, cutting fins out on a bandsaw. And it was just what I did. It's now child labour, you know. But back then it was like I was sick. I couldn't go to school.
It was survival.
And that's when all the factories had to make their fin panels, cut their own fins out for them themselves. So Dad had me drawing on all the fin panels and cutting them out, and so I essentially started on fins back then and cutting them out and foiling fins and. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. So
and also gave you access to a who's who of board builders. They would come through the factory, right?
Everybody, yeah. I haven't known a world outside of that. So Simon Anderson's always been one of my dad's best mates. So Simon stayed down at our house for every year at Bell's all the industry, Wayne, all the guys, I've kind of just grown up in it. And I'm very fortunate for that, because whenever I wanted to shape for years, I was hassling Dad, but I was like 10. So I was hassling, and the last thing Dad wanted me to do was get in the surf industry because it's too hard to work. There's no money, and you don't care about that when you're a kid. So when I finally got to 13 and I hassled, Dad said, all right, you want to be a shaper? He gave me this old, like a 7'8" blank. It's like 4.5 inches thick. The old flat decked old school blank. And he said, go in there and plane it till there's nothing left. And didn't give me headphones, didn't give me a mask. And I went in at 13, terrified of a planer, and I planed it till there's nothing left. I was covered in dust, and my ears were broken, and I was coughing, my eyes were wrecked. And I finished doing that. I came out, Dad, I've done it. He goes, all right, get another blank, do it again. Because that's what shaping is. Righto, I did it again. That was it. The die was cast. I was off and running.
But he was trying to set you off of it?
It was like the lads here said, that's like the smoke a pack of cigarettes thing.
That's what I was thinking.
So that's what he did to me for shaping.
But you loved cigarettes.
I loved the cigarettes, man. Yeah. So I just, it was horrific though. It was, I almost pushed through it because like I'd hassled for that long. I couldn't just go, nah, this ain't for me now after that. So it was a horrific way to start. It was horrible. When I spoke to him after the second board, I was literally reading his lips because I couldn't hear anything. Yeah, it was but it was good. It was I remember that really fondly now.
Sure.
So it's but back then, yeah. But look, I just grew up in a filthy factory. Dad even locked it sometimes, left work. He left me there. And then later that night he'd go, all right, I've left Corey at work. And he'd have to come back up, unlock and let me out.
Throughout the career, have you always worked with your dad?
Yep.
Do you still?
No. So my dad passed away last year.
Okay.
But we did his whole life. Yeah, we worked together. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Okay, good.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Good. Because that can go one of two ways.
Yeah, totally. We had one argument once and that was it. And the argument was over. You can call them time vampires or you can call them old mates in Australia, but these guys that just come into factories and talk all day and don't leave and they just stop all work happening. And my dad was so pro, he could glass and talk like nothing else. And these guys drove me nuts because they just slowed every part of production, but they were usually the guys hassling the most for their board to be finished.
Totally.
I'm like, well, get out and let us work on them, you know? But so I had one argument once where I said, Dad, you're too kind to these people. You gotta move them on. You gotta, you know, so we can get the work done. So that was the one argument we ever had. But you know, he was my best mate, and having him literally outside my shaping bay for most of my career was you know, one of the true gifts you can ever have. You know, your old man is your best mate and your work colleague and your teacher. Yeah. Yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Did he listen to your reasoning with that argument?
Oh, absolutely. He got it.
Oh, he did?
Got it.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Yeah, he got it. Doesn't mean he did anything about it.
Okay.
Yeah, because he was too kind. He was always too kind to these guys. So he tried to just kind of maneuver them away from me a bit because, it drove me nuts.
I'm cognizant of that and don't want to be that time vampire.
Yeah.
And even these guys, we should state we're at the Waterman's Guild right now.
Yeah.
And these guys I know well.
Yeah.
And I'm driving by sometimes or I'm even nearby and it's like I know the friendly thing to do is to stop by and say hi.
Yeah.
But I don't want to annoy them. Yeah, I don't want to waste their time. And I know that there's so many people that waste their time. Yeah. But ultimately a year or two will go by where I don't check in with them and then I feel kind of like a dick.
Yeah.
But I also want to just be like, hey, you guys know we're still friends, right? We don't have to talk all the time, right? Yeah. You don't actually want me to stop by, do you?
Old mates in factories. Look, popping in to say good day is always a rad thing.
Yeah.
But then there's talking about what you heard on the news last night and what, you know, Jimbo down the street did and you know, whatever else. They're kind of, you know, we get paid per job we do in surfboards. You get paid per shape.
Yeah.
And you get paid per sand job or, you know, and if you prevent them from that sand job a day and then the next day somebody prevents them from another one, you know, at the end of the year, you've worn a few $1,000 hit just from people chatting.
And it's not just the guy tomorrow. They've probably got 5 guys today.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah, that's a killer.
Yeah, 15 minutes each times 5 is a lot.
And that leads to that famous, you know, shaping question, is my board ready yet? Well, if you'd let us do it, it'd be ready.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, let this segment of the podcast be a PSA.
Yeah.
For anybody who's listening, leave them alone.
Or just be cool, come say g'day, thank them for what they did on your board or whatever. But just realise if the moment they stop moving their tool, they are losing money.
Yeah.
And, you know, it gets back to, for years and years I did mates rates boards for a lot of guys, you know, because when the Asian board thing hit in Australia, you had to cut prices to compete and all that kind of stuff. But the hits that you took by doing all these mates rates boards, and you're essentially donating your time so these people can have a surfboard. And then when you really needed a chop out or help, all the people you've donated your time to, it never came back.
Interesting.
It never came back. So after a while, I thought, I just can't do that anymore because, you know, when I was on my knees with injuries and stuff, there was no one was coming forward to help, but I dedicated so many hours and so much of my money to people to have surfboards. It never reciprocated.
Right.
Only with a few guys, but they were mates.
Yeah.
You know, but all the people that came in and you did a better price for, they were never there when you needed them.
Right.
You know, they were the first to jump off as soon as you put your price up a little bit to try to get paid.
Interesting.
They were the first ones gone.
I want to talk about board or design philosophy a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I'd love that.
Even though everything works, there are themes that emerge with your work.
Yeah.
Channels, for example.
Yeah.
Why don't we see guys on the CT riding boards with channels?
judging, like we discussed earlier, there's certain parameters I have to surf within. You only have to watch Occy back at the skins in wherever at Bells riding a 6-channel with glass on fins, do the best surfing Bells has ever seen. And, the surfing took different body shapes and board types back then. But you look across the tour now, these guys are athletes, and there's only certain, body shapes that fit into that. And not a lot of them lead to high-performance channel board surfing.
Okay.
But yeah, I implore anybody to look at Occy surfing Bells on a 6-channel with glass on fins. And back when you didn't have to cram as many turns and get airborne and slide out, and it was a much more almost pure basic surfing that it appeals to.
So how do you define the benefits of channels?
It's kind of like saying, how do you define the benefits of driving a 70s muscle car? You kind of can't describe it till you get in it and drive it. And you kind of go, sure, the new cars go fantastic, but these old cars are something else. You know what I mean? So it's just a more considered type of surfing, maybe, that you're kind of like going for that turn, and you're just going to work on your form. You're not going to try to blow fins out or anything like that. You just let the surfing come to you a little more rather than trying to push through it. And I think that's the best way to describe channels. There's theories about all of it, but when you're surfing and you allow the board to do its thing, then that's what kind of channels are. I know it's a really shitty way to try to describe it, but surf one and you'll get it. Yeah.
Are there limitations to the channels based on fin setup, or do they work with all fin setups?
I think there's different channel. For so long it was 6 channels, 3 fins, and now it's like 4 channels, 2 fins, two channels, 2 fins, and all that. I think, again, like the considered surfing, you got to be considered in your shaping of them too. The depth of them, how long they are, where they are, how they speak with the fins and the outline. You got to be considered about it, and you won't get it right the first time. So you got to do it again after that, and then try different fins. And you got to work on it. But yeah, you don't just put channels in to say you've done channels. All right, they've got to work and they've got to serve the purpose. So, you got to consider the whole board, not just want to do channels in boards. Yeah, because there's a lot of channels in boards now. There really are, and you can tell the considered ones, and you can tell the ones they wanted to put channels in. Yeah.
Right, but the channels, as with everything else, work in concert with every other design element of the board.
Yeah, they have to. Yeah. You can go overboard with them or not enough, and it's kind of like, well, why do them? Yeah.
Do you ride boards without channels?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I ride everything. I actually don't know what to ride anymore.
Really?
And I love that. For a lot of years, this is what you ride, and this is how I rode it, and I blew my knee out, and it took me out of the water for about a year, and then I had about 3 or 4 surfs, and I blew it out again, and it took me out of the water for almost a year again.
Yikes.
Shorter time, and about 3 or 4 surfs back, and I was getting to it, then I slipped down a flight of stairs and fractured my kneecap on the same knee. So it put me out of the water for almost 2.5 years. I didn't surf. And that allowed me to the best thing that ever happened to me, mind you. My knee's terrible now, but it allowed me the space to reinvent what I thought, because I had to mind surf. I had to do something to keep me sane, making boards for people, not surfing, being miserable, put on weight, eating too much, depressed. And I had to mind surf a lot, and that helped a lot. And shaping was good medicine, but it allowed me to go, well, my surfing's fucked now. So why not start again, but not where you were?
Right.
Like go somewhere else. And it allowed me to have the and it also coincided with I didn't feel like I was progressing in my shaping because I was trying to be the next Simon Anderson, and I was trying to be the next Al Merrick or whatever, surfing, making shortboards and all that. So that happening to me gave me the freedom to like reinvent what I surf, how I surf, what I want to make, what I want to shape. And and actually as soon as I dropped wanting to be the next whatever and be just me and really not giving a shit about what people thought I was making, it gave me absolute freedom to just go off on tangents and be weird, and it was a great thing for me.
Where did you start your entry back in after the injury and kind of getting back in the water? And what was your first success, let's say, in terms of design?
Well, my first successes started while I was injured, because I decided while I was injured, I'm going to reinvent my surfing. And that meant I started reimagining surfboards. I was ripping glass off old surfboards and reshaping stuff out of them. I don't know. If an idea came to me, I just shaped it. I just drew it, and I still do it. I don't even measure the length. I just draw it till it looks right, and I shape it till it feels right. And I don't. I have to, of course, measure where the fins go, but essentially, I don't know the dimensions I surfed. And it also started back where I'd go to Jan Juc and I'd go the furthest. Jan Juc's a local beach break. It's not renowned for having good waves whatsoever. It can be fun, but what I did was I went all the other end of the beach. I didn't want a single person to see me surfing because just thinking, oh, fuck, Corey can't even surf anymore, man. What? And he's fat and he's fucking pale. And, so I started all the way. And if there was somebody out, I wouldn't go out.
Wow.
I'd leave. And then I just worked my way back up the beach, slowly, and weird experimental things and different shapes. And now, you'll just see me out in the line-up out at Winky and Bell's any other day.
Do you remember, though, the first success or epiphany that you had in that experimentation of something that was you never would have considered?
No,
before?
I remember heaps of failures. It's the frog boiling in the pot of water, mate. It's a gradual feeling to get to the success part. There's been far more failures than successes, and it's just taking that same board back, routing new fin plugs in it, putting new ones in it, surfing it with different, and the board just being a disaster from go to woe, then it just, that idea kind of clarified, and I put it away for 6 months and I'd work on something else, and then, and then you learn something from that, then you put it in there and you do that with it, and that happened. And but like the twin channel twin that I worked on for a long while actually happened when all my boards were dinged, and I had this keel twin that I'd ridden 6 months earlier, and I didn't really like it, but it was shaped by a guy that was coming from, he was a longboard surfer, and he'd shaped it from that point of view. Mm-hmm. And then this second time I rode it, actually took this kind of cute girl down the beach to go surfing with, and all my boards were dinged, and I'm like, shit, I've got this board I don't really like, and kind of want to show off a little bit, and I took that out. By the end of the surf, I forgot she was even there, mate. I had a ball, and I surfed for ages, and then I'm like, yeah, I love this board, but there are aspects of that board I wish I could have in it. So I made it a quad, and then but it doesn't feel like a twin anymore, and I want it to do that. And then you just the process of elimination or adding started, and you just keep working on it and fucking with it and making new fins for it and enjoying that process. Where I don't know if enough shapers enjoy that process. They love the victory more than the walk to it, and I love the figuring out of it. You know, that's the fun part of it for me. Once I've kind of got to where I'm happy, I'm kind of like, well, that's done. I want to go to the next thing.
I think it's so hard for so many people to divorce themselves from the business aspect of it too. Like they would love to explore and create and all that, but it's expensive and there's no return on that investment.
No, there's none.
And bills need to get paid today. Yeah. So
I'd shape if it wasn't a business. Yeah. If there's no money in it, I'm making boards. Yeah. You know, I'd get a job, but I'd still make boards. Like, yeah, it's always been in the playing with it to get it to it. Once you're there, like the question's kind of answered, and then it's boring once you got the answer. The questions are always more interesting. So, so hence why I don't know what I surf anymore. I've got everything from ridiculous boards to quite sensible boards, and it is expensive and it does take time. And I'm just starting to, on Instagram, I want to actually take people on that journey with me now.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, I want to, you know, a lot of surfboard brands tend to like, here's our new model and it's the best one all the team riders have ever felt and blah, blah, blah. And here it is. And like, yeah, but why? Why the need for that board? Or what's the difference? What did you do? You know, and I kind of want to bring people along with like starting a new thing for me. It doesn't mean it's an original. It may very well be out in the market already.
Yeah.
But I just want to start bringing people along for the ride of how much I'm failing or succeeding.
Well, inevitably what ends up happening is somebody reads that exploration post.
Yes.
Where you've even said like, hey, here's what I'm thinking about now and here's kind of what I'm working on. Here's a photo of the board.
Yeah, yeah.
Inevitably, 5 people are going to DM you and be like, sick, shape one for me.
Yeah.
And then that becomes something that's already in the rearview mirror by the time you post it.
Yeah.
So I would think you're interested in working on new things and exploring, but they want something that's already, you know?
You know, but they're just buying off the aesthetic and they're not buying off what it is, you know? So yeah, I'll make it for them once I've kind of like I'm much more confident in it. But there's also the guys where you shape it and you share that and they go, I used to make them back then and rah. And here's the thing, I'm not saying I'm the first to do it.
Of course.
I'm just making it, mate. You know, so or you should do this to it. And I'm like, well then that's your idea. You know, I'm just doing my thing here and enjoy the ride or don't. You know, whatever. But the process of being wrong is fantastic. And you don't, you know, truth is a hard commodity to find in surfboard sales. You know, it's
so true.
It's ridiculously hard to get a true this board went like shit review of a board. You won't hear one, you know, except for maybe Dane Reynolds in a Stab in the Dark or something like that. But you'll rarely hear a shaper of their own surfboards calling it shit. And I'm going to be happy to do that if I shape one like shit, you know? So, so that's the kind of journey I want to go on at the moment because I feel like that'll be the only thing that keeps me on Instagram interested because it can be a pretty difficult place to be sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Just going to read you a quote from an article that you did. I think it might have been with Swellnet.
Sure.
It said, I'm just shaping for fun and I reckon foam feels it.
Yeah.
I think if you're shaping, listening to good music and having fun while doing it, the foam drinks that up.
Sure does. Yeah.
Do you believe that literally?
Yes, absolutely. It's like the universe telling me it's the same with shaping. If you're in a foul mood and you've had a shitty day and you shape it, it cannot help but be absorbed into that board. And that's because I'm touching it and my hands are doing it. You know what I mean? And you got to, it's absolutely true. In my eyes, it doesn't mean it's a fact. It just, for me, if I'm in a shitty mood or something, or if the customer's being a pain in the ass, they're probably going to get a pain in the ass board. You know what I mean? Because I'll almost shape it out of spite to get it out of the fucking road, so they're off my case. Now, don't be that customer, all right? Because you'll get a better custom off a guy that's loving shaping your board. Like, I truly am, in the world, especially with a world of Instagram and everything now, I truly feel honoured that people want to buy a surfboard off me, and there is a world of choice now. They can go to any shaper on the planet they so choose, and they've come to me for a board, and I like to honour that, you know, and so I want to shape their board while I'm in a good mood and I'm listening to good tunes, or even listen to you a couple times. But yeah, I was listening to Exile on Main Street this morning, shaping a channel bottom for somebody, and it was so fucking fun, you know. Great tunes, good board. It was my last board of my trip here, and I know that guy's getting a good board because I enjoyed the hell out of making it. So
do you drink wine at all?
No, I don't.
I used to work in the wine business, but so I have like a thing for wine, but there's this concept, it's a French term and concept called terroir, and it's about the mojo essentially of the vineyard site, you know, and it is not defined by a soil samples, you know, analysis or anything like that. And it's unique to this particular vine versus the one next to it, and this row of vines versus the one next to it. Certain vineyards have a terroir that is either positive or negative, and it could be because there was a wedding on this site 500 years ago, or there was a war on this site 500 years ago, and it does factor in that the sun hits it differently from this angle than it does slightly for the next plant, you know, and little things like that, microclimate things are factored into the concept, but it's much greater than that. And then there's an extension of biodynamic farming that makes consideration for all of that. And so they do things like play music for the vines and things like that, because they believe in the energy essentially is kind of what it is that the land holds, you know?
I'm not a religious guy by any stretch, but there's a universe, and it's a force or whatever you want to bloody call it. But you can't help but a painter can't help but inject what they're feeling into the painting they're painting,
right?
You know, so it's just because I'm shaping a surfboard doesn't make it not a sculpture and me making it. So you can't help injecting who you are and what you're feeling into it, and it has to count for something.
Who's laminating your boards
at the moment? The guy that met me in the car park that day, Boots. It's out on his private property, which is great. No such thing as old mates anymore popping into the factory. They don't come anymore. It's on a private property, He just came to me. Here's a fascinating story too, Boots. He had an aneurysm out at like 8 foot. Was it G-Land? He basically died in the water. He was a tradie. He was a builder, and he had a brain aneurysm out in the water. He washed up on the beach, almost died, and had the full operation. They cut his head and peeled it back and drilled in his head and put titanium clips and stuff in his brain, and he's extremely lucky to be alive.
Wow.
And after he survived that, very luckily and rehabbed, he went around Australia with his family, thinking, what am I going to do with myself because he wasn't happy in his building trade and all that kind of stuff. And after his trip around Australia, he goes, I love surfing and I love surfboards, and that's what I want to do. So my second life is going to be making surfboards. And that's when he approached me, knowing that I'm a bit of a tumbleweed. I'll just blow around in the breeze. And he came to me and said, Corey, I want to set up the best surfboard factory we can make. And like I said, within half an hour, we were up in his shed, sticky taping on the floor where the glassing room was going to be. We're in business within half an hour. Yeah. I've known Boots my whole life, and we're good friends. He's over here on this trip with me.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah.
Laminating?
No, he just to see all the laminating tricks of everybody. And
super cool.
So he set up a factory and he took on all my staff and he built me a shaping bay there because he'd never had a surfboard factory before and he needed guidance. So, now Boots has got such a good group of guys that all get together every Friday afternoon at the factory and somebody chooses what the theme for lunch is going to be that day, and we, tacos or a barbecue or whatever. And it's such a different environment than I've ever worked in, which is brilliant because I've been in a whole career working next to my dad. Now to be in a factory with one of my best mates and him setting out to go, I want to make the best factory and I want to make the best surfboards out of that factory. Not from an ego point of view. He just wants to make the best things, So, and being with somebody that's driven like him to want to make the best stuff, I only benefit from that.
Well, the reason I asked you who laminates the boards is because the question was going to be, if the foam drinks up your energy, the resin must drink it up as well.
Absolutely.
And so how do you hand off the foam to somebody else knowing that trusting that they're going to imbue?
Yeah, exactly like I was taught. You go around and you thank all your boys, you make sure you pop in, say good day, and how can I make your life better this week making my boards? My channels are the shape they are because I learnt to glass those channels and I learnt to sand those channels. And I got them to a point now where they're easy to glass and easy to sand. And that's because I want to take care of the guys making those things. And you pay them as well as you can. You get together, you reward them, you make lunches together, you're mates with them. They're not just staff.
It's why it's interesting to the Patagonia example that we were talking about earlier to see how they've scaled that business up to where they're implementing those same exact philosophies. Because once you have investors or just anybody else involved, it's a bad business decision.
It's totally bad.
And but what you're saying, I think, is still true, which is if the employees are happy and that energy is going into the product and generating a better product and the customer is happy, then it justifies the extra expense that you're laying out up front.
Exactly. Ultimately. And you respect them. You got to sanders work their ass off, man. That's a hard job. I know because I did it for so long, and the very least you can do at the end of every week is go and say thank you for all the work you put into my boards. Like, it's a simple yet important thing to do, and I make sure I do it every week. Go thank every one of the boys in the factory because, like I said, my logos are on my boards and maybe I take the glory, maybe I don't, but those guys made it happen, not me. Right. I had the easy part, and I had the fun part. They've got the wet, smelly, hard part of it, and I respect them for that because I've done that.
Before, when you hated shaping, before you found your love for it again, did you ever consider doing any other work?
I did do other work. I did some surf schooling, which surf schools might cop a bit of shit, but that was one of the most fun experiences I've ever had, seeing the looks on people's faces, catching their first waves. And I brickies laboured for a while. Because, for a while, I just didn't like the surf industry, the surfboard industry. I didn't like any of it for a while. I was making boards, I was shaping it, I was sanding it, and wet rubbing it, doing all that stuff. I was making $50 a board at one stage, and hand shaping with channels and blah blah blah, and people were still coming and going, "Oh God, that much for a board?"
Right.
Like, are you fucking kidding? Like, I'm breaking myself for this board for you to make $50. I need how many orders a week to even make a living? So yeah, I walked away for a while till all my boards were totally destroyed and I needed new boards. And I walked through surf shops and everything in those surf shops was boring to me, so boring. And that also helped me on my path to making different boards, because I was like, how have we, surfers, shapers, designers, whatever we are, how have we made surfboards boring?
Yeah.
How have we done that? That's a tragedy, you know? So I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else in shaping, but I was just like, this is boring. They're all white thrusters. Come on, there's more to this. So yeah, that's why it's around about 22 years ago I started surfing 20s, and I was the only one on them, and people are like, what are you doing? I'm like, what? I'm just having fun, man.
Now everybody's on them.
Yeah, and it just put me in the sweet spot for right now.
Good.
You know what I mean?
Well, everything works, and you're open to everything, right?
Yeah.
The problem with that, or not, maybe it's not a problem, but when I talk to surfboard shapers, what I find is they get really into experimenting with one specific thing, because just within this tiny little narrow space, there's so much to explore, only so much time, and I can only surf so often to really experiment with these things. So it seems challenging to be open to anything and everything.
Yeah.
Is the common denominator twin fins?
For me?
Yeah.
It was, but now it's not.
Okay.
And that's because somebody pulled me up on that. Everything works.
Yeah.
So why are you only surfing 20s, Corey? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so I'm off. I'm off in other directions now. So
what are you excited about right now?
Well, I'm excited about going back to 3 fins and quad fins, but I tried finless for a while, and yeah, they work, but not for my body shape, and not for my knee. I couldn't get back up half the time because my knee would lock out. So, but I've watched Derek surf them, so I know they work. But length and rail line, the thing that really interests me at the moment, I see so many people that I think are on too shorter boards. We overcorrect in surfing.
Yeah, totally.
We go too short, too wide, too thick, or we go too long, too this, too that. And I've actually been on this run lately of watching. I brought up Occy before, and Curran, and that era of surfing where there were heaps of different body shapes in the Pro Tour and heaps of different board types. And it seems like that era was fast forwarded over really quickly till we got to the high performance single double concave shortboard. But you look at guys on slightly longer boards, it always looks beautiful. It's just beautiful surfing. Everything fits like it looks like it ergonomically should, rather than everything being tweaked out and pushed. I don't know. There's something about rail line and finesse that's interesting me at the moment. And the fact that, there's the fact that twin fins never really went long either. They stayed short and in fish territory. So I'm talking like 6'6" everyday shortboards that you can play with the fin configuration to make it go in small stuff and to make it go in big stuff. So kind of like rail line, and then there's fin configurations that aren't, they're multiple configurations in one board. Does that make sense?
A little bit. So you're saying 6'6"?
6'6", maybe longer, maybe a little shorter.
Pointy?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'll tell you when I get there. But that it can work as like a quad or a thruster or a twin, but like making sets of fins for it to make it perform differently, going really tall and rakey with a tiny little thing at the back, or oversized back with tiny little fronts. But there's so many configurations to so many different things that you can play with. Like we tend to go a thruster with like a quad option, but why is that? Why can't it be like neither of either? Why can't it just be something unique that, you know? So I'm just trying to figure out what that is at the moment.
What have you been riding while you're here?
Well, unfortunately, both my boards were broken when I got here by the airline.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But I had one, I'm calling it the Twin Tune, and it sounds super cheesy, and I hate even saying it out loud because it's a terrible name. But it was an easy way for me to tell you what it is without going full descriptive. But I thought to myself, rather than shaping channels into a board, why not screw them onto a board? You know, like why do they have to be in? Why can't they be on? Then you can play with the depth of the channel and the length of it and all that kind of stuff. So rather than shaping a channel in, I put some fin plugs where I'd generally put my channel, and I've made about 10 different little sets of fins. Some are only about that big, but they're like that long. Okay. So yeah, I'm playing with like, let's bolt some channels on, and maybe I'll get to the point where you don't need the fins. I'll have all these bolted on channels and they'll be finless.
Yeah, I mean, the boards, the boards I've seen Derek riding, he says they're finless, but the channels are so intricate that they have a lot of edge, like a channel. Yeah. Or I mean, like a fin, essentially.
So I'm playing with that idea that, the fin configuration, you know, I shaped my first board at 13. I made it on relatively the same foam that we're using now.
Sure. Polyurethane.
Yep. With the same glass that we're relatively using now, with the same resin that we're relatively using now, and the same fin configuration that we're relatively using now. Fuck, come on. Come on. Like, really? Is that where we're at?
Maybe we nailed it in the 50s.
Yeah, maybe we did. But like, mobile phones didn't exist back then. Yeah. And there was no such thing as an electric car, or so many wonderful breakthroughs. But yet we're still at this point in surfboards that, you know, maybe shapers are lazy. Maybe I'm lazy. Maybe it's too expensive, or there's nothing in it. But there's a reason we've been funneled into this kind of thing, and we're, I could go on about it, but the fact is that I could be the stupid one here, trying all this stuff, but I'm happy to be the stupid one doing it.
Well, the experimentation is fun for
I
you.
love it. Yeah. I love that sometimes you come in out of the water and you feel like you're the biggest kook that has ever surfed, because that board would only go straight. And you know, and
I feel that way all the time.
Yeah. And but yeah, the answers, the questions have always been far more interesting than the answers to me.
So what have you been riding since you've been here?
That Twin Tune.
Oh, the one
Yep. Yeah. Look, Sam, I want to take a moment in this podcast to actually, Sam, the glasser laminator in the FCD factory. We arrived here on a Friday and I had 2 broken boards. And we went into the factory there, and he was like, sure, man, I'll work on this over the weekend. And
crazy.
Rah, rah, rah. And by Monday, he had my snapped board fixed for me. He spent the weekend working. It's a guy that didn't know me from a bar of soap. And he was so kind to me. And he worked his ass off all weekend to give me a board that I could surf. I was borrowing some of Fletch Chenard's boards.
Yeah.
And he worked all weekend. So thank you, Sam. You're a legend. I took the boys in a few slabs and some chocolates and all that kind of stuff. But so I've been surfing that.
Okay, good. Good.
Yeah.
Have you gotten good waves while you've been here?
I had good waves Saturday morning here. at Newport.
Yep.
And we had the first morning we arrived at Pitus, we had nice waves, but I was so wrecked and jet lagged and all kinds of stuff, and figuring out, like, I was borrowed Fletcher's boards and they were all new to me. That the waves were good, but I was all over the shop.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You mentioned off air before we started recording that you're staying in Newport.
Yep.
Around what streets are you staying?
River Ave, something like that.
Okay, so down by the river mouth, kind of?
No, it's near, like, Life Tower 48.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Amazing. I feel like I'm on the set of a movie.
Yeah.
In Newport.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Have you ever surfed Newport before?
Never.
It's fun, right?
Yeah. It was hollow.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it. And I wasn't expecting, like, the level of the young guys here are amazing. They're bendy and quick to their feet. You have to be with that wave. They were really good. It was fun to watch.
I didn't surf it Saturday morning, but it gets legitimately good.
You can tell.
Yeah.
You can tell that gets really good.
Yeah. And down in that zone, kind of those lower streets, there's if you were up on the pier and you look north, you could see the bend in the coast.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a tremendous, so it picks up different angles, and actually there's a image of it right behind you. Yeah. That painting right there.
Yeah. I was looking at it earlier.
It looks like that regularly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, it's amazing.
But like that up in like 56th Street is kind of the zone that's good year round.
Yeah.
Down where you're at and lower, it's kind of during the winter time. Like right now, it definitely gets swell and gets the direction kind of fits into there.
The guys were ripping. It flooded me with, I get more out of watching regular everyday surfers than watching the Pro Tour. And I was so flooded with ideas and stuff.
Interesting.
Watching that, because I come from Bells and Winky Pop, and they're a few minute drive from the factory, and that informs a lot of what I do. Even though I travel around a bit, it's my home turf is there, and that of course informs what I make. But I was flooded with these ideas watching these kids surfing that wave. It's such a different shaped wave to home.
Yeah,
it's actually got me really excited. I've started sketching up some design ideas just from watching that morning.
Yeah, punchy, close to shore.
Yeah, and it's this initial punch, and then it dissipates.
Yeah,
and it doesn't rumble you like at home.
Yeah,
yeah. But no, actually, I was expecting like more crowds. I'd heard how crowded it gets. I was expecting more of a crowd, and for there to be a lot more barking in the water between people. But everybody here's been so fucking kind to me.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
It does get crowded, but even during the middle of summertime, when there's swell and it could be a Saturday and it's beautiful out, I still find days by myself. Yeah. Strangely.
Yeah, I bet.
So.
Yeah. But the people here I truly have been so welcomed here, and so many people felt, I guess, familiar because of the whole Instagram world we live in now and stuff. But the generosity and the kindness of everybody shown me since I've been here has been quite overwhelming.
I'm glad to hear it.
It's really unreal.
Well, I mentioned we're sitting in the Waterman's Guild factory.
Yeah.
How did you connect with these guys?
They reached out to me, actually. They said, would I be keen on making some boards out of here for the American market? And I was like, yeah, cool. All right. Well, how are we going to do this? Because, I'm over at home and you guys are here. And that's kind of when the Patagonia thing kind of said, well, we want you to come over anyway. So I hooked up with these because like we mentioned earlier, the kind of brain drain in the surf industry, it's just as hitting just as hard in Australia as it is here. And I'm really keen to get my boards made locally here by local people that train local future guys. So we're just trying to come up with a way to make my boards over here with trusted guys in a great established factory to not only supply my boards over here, but to give guys jobs and to keep them in jobs.
Epic.
And That's important because, I grew up in this industry and I fucking love this industry. I love it. It's given me my life. And it would be upsetting that the guys behind me don't benefit from that at all. So that's my goal. I heard the episode you just did recently with Joel Tudor.
Oh yeah,
talking about how he's reinvested and the brain drain in surfing. And I'm all with him. We gotta nurture this industry. We gotta, or well, who knows what the results would be? That they wouldn't be good. No. What would turn into, I don't frankly quite want to know. But so this is my way. I want to come here and I want to make quality boards, and I want to keep good quality people in good quality jobs and supply America, because I get asked a bit about having my boards here, and I'm not a businessman. I'm a shaper, and it's always been a bit too big for me to figure out. And so with the help of these guys, I'm hoping to do a lot more boards for America now.
These guys have reworked this business in a really smart way, I think.
Yeah.
And it used to just be a glassing facility, and now they're doing more than just that. But within the glassing facility itself, they've reinvested with ventilation, recyclers and all sorts of stuff to actually make it a much cleaner, safer, better work environment for anybody who does want to come up in the the industry like this. Sure, you can be you can go work construction, you can do it, but you can also do this. We're charging the right prices, so you're going to get paid adequately. You're going to have a safe work environment. It's in Southern California. Manufacturers are held to the highest standard of regulation.
Isn't that good? For
the environment, for your own personal health and safety, for everything. So it's a good option for a lot of people.
And
it wasn't previously.
And that's kind of why I'm here. It's I want to support the people trying to support the industry. Like, surfboards have always been the crutch of the whole industry.
Right.
Without surfboards, what is it? It's their fashion shops.
Yeah.
So so you gotta nurture these factories and these guys making the boards. They deserve to be paid well. They work hard.
Yeah.
All guys in surfboard factories. There's
talented.
There's no easy way to make it. Every part of it is graft, mate. Every part of it. So and that's a lot of factories have had to go the way like Waterman's is here. You can't just be a glass shop anymore because the wholesale game is brutal.
Yeah.
It's brutal. And so glass houses have to modernise, and glass shops have never been the sharpest business.
Right.
Businesses, but they're having to get sharper now, and it's a good thing, and it'll benefit surfing in the long run.
Agreed.
Because you're going to the people that made your board. They made it. They didn't buy it in and have it and rock up on the shelf. They've made it, and they've put their blood, sweat, and tears into that thing, and it's right here.
I saw on your Instagram that you were also at Ventura Surf Shop last week.
Yeah.
Did you get to meet Blinky?
I'm not sure who Blinky is.
It's the owner.
Yeah. Well, I think I met Robert.
Okay.
I think he's this owner's son.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah.
Blinky's a classic character.
Yeah. I've wanted to go to that shop for a long time.
Yeah, it's amazing.
To walk in and to see Clark Foam up in the rafters.
I feel like they've got a bunch of blanks there.
They've got a bunch of them.
A ton of them.
And not that I ever wanted to shape them, but, I've seen these brands in American surf mags. You don't realise how influential American surf magazines were to me, because I saw all the Australian surf mags, but I also grew up in them. Those same people that were in those pages were in my lounge room at home. And then to see these American surf magazines with these like foreign different blanks, different boards, and you guys were doing wild sprays when I was growing up, and we were much more conservative in Australia at that time. Maybe we are still, I don't know, but and seeing like these boards made by like prescriptions of like, what the fuck is a prescription surfboard, and all these fantastic names and logos, and the American surf culture influenced me because I had such access to the Australian surf that it was all kind of known, but the American. So yeah, I took a lot from American surf, maybe more than Australian, pure because the questions were never answered. They were just the magazines, and I had to draw my own conclusions to what all these things over here were. And they were so foreign and exciting. So yeah, that was a big influence in my upbringing, American surf culture.
Yeah, so Clark Foam was one of those
Clark Foam was one of those brands. And just seeing all the brands over here that they weren't in Australia, I've been a pig in shit over here.
That's cool. And you got to spend time with Yvon Chouinard personally.
Personally, yeah. I wasn't expecting that.
How was that?
It's great. I had him over for dinner, and I wasn't expecting to meet him, and to get to meet him is a privilege and an honour, and for him to take me through his workshop, and for him to have the time to talk to the dusty, hairy dude from Australia who makes surfboards, whom he wanted to take the time to talk to me. That's fantastic, mate. Yeah,
what do you
really good.
What do you cook for Yvon when he comes over for dinner?
I just put a barbie on for him, some sausages on the barbie.
Nice.
Yeah, and some it was an honour to have him over my house and to have dinner with him and hang out.
When you say he walked you through the factory, through his factory or his workshop, was it his personal workshop or the Patagonia
workshop?
What is he working on? What does he do?
Oh no, this was the one behind the Patagonia shop. His old steelworks. So he still works out of there. He was going in the next day to make stuff, and he's still at it. It's brilliant. He's an incredible dude. But
what's he making? What's he working on? Tinkering?
He's just tinkering, I guess.
Interesting.
I didn't really dive deep into that because, he's so interested and he wanted to hear about like me.
Yeah.
I'm like, all the people in the world that want your ears and you're talking to me is a really flattering thing.
Yeah. Super cool. What a great experience.
Oh mate, yeah. It's a really memorable one.
Couple of closing questions.
Sure, mate.
Do you ever ride other shapers' surfboards at this point?
Occasionally, but not often.
Okay.
No. I try not to. I'm looking at Instagram much less too. I'm not. It's hard to be original when you're so flooded with imageries and everything of everybody else. I'm actually trying to close shop a bit to take control back of my my thoughts. It's so easily influenced on Instagram and all the social media and everything now. It's hard to have an original idea, and I've found it, especially in the last couple of years, where I've been stuck in almost a custom loop where you can become a slave to your own ideas, and I feel like for the last 4 years I've been stuck in this loop of making the same boards of my own boards, but the same boards over and over in different sizes for people. And I've really found it hard to come by new ideas because I'm looking at my phone, I'm shaping the same things. And so that's why I've made a concerted effort now to, like, I'm going to close up shop visually a bit and just go down my own rabbit holes and maybe go a bit crazy there. So, no, I'm not interested. And I love other shapers.
Yeah.
I don't want it to sound like I don't. I love shapers and all their different boards. But for me right now, what works is I just want to go down some rabbit holes and have fun with the creative side again.
Is there a way to stimulate that creativity?
Yeah. Watch and speak to people. Watch people, regular, everyday people surfing, not pros, because then you'll want to shape these pro things. Everyday people with everyday problems are great because they give you a problem to solve. Their surfing is a great problem to solve. I've learnt more. Everything I've learnt about surfers, I've been taught by people that don't know what they're talking about. You know, because
interesting.
You know, they go, oh, it feels like a bit of this or that. I don't know how to explain it, and you know what questions to ask them, and usually when they're talking about something, they're talking about it in response to the board they're riding, and it isn't overall, it's this particular board. And so you learn so much from people that know nothing that, so many people say to me, I don't know anything about surfboards. And you actually know so much more than you think. And those people have taught me more about surfboards than people that know what they're talking about. Yeah.
It's wonderful, open-minded philosophy to maintain.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. And I love watching everyday surfers.
Yeah.
Like I said the other day.
I agree with you.
Yeah, you learn so much.
It's a lot more deciphering that you have to do. But I agree with you. If you're up for the workload and up for the learning curve, all the raw material and information is there.
Yeah. I've spent a lifetime making customs for people and listening to people talk about surfing and surfboards, and I struggle getting to my feet. And, I need to paddle more, and you learn so much from these little problem solving exercises that it flushes through everything you make. And then you'll get a hot guy come in and say, I want 27 litres.
Right.
Like, thanks for the information. You know? I know.
The data.
Yeah. Like, whatever.
We talked about it before we turned on the mics, but you're going home tomorrow after spending 2 weeks here.
Yep.
You got a 15-hour flight, probably.
Yep.
What are you most excited about? What are you most eager to do once you get home?
See my boy and my girl and just get home. But other than that, this is the last 3 years has been hard with watching my dad slowly get sicker and losing him. And in the same breath, my mum's been unwell, so I've been caring for her a bit too. And I needed this time away to just to spark the engine back up, to speak to new people and to get out of my own bubble. But like I said, I was watching those kids surf Newport the other day, and I'm like, fuck, I can't wait to develop this little thought I've had. And get into some shaping of new things, being a kook shaper for a year. Yeah.
The reason I bring it up again is that detail's so relatable, I think, for people where, like, you and I are a similar age, and you get to a point where you have some success and so a lot more opportunity. Yeah. But being a workaholic and overworking is a real danger and a real threat to your personal interests. Yeah. Whether that is spending time with your kid or just spending time in the water. Yeah. And so trying to navigate, like, here's a really successful 2 weeks away for business, and it's great for your creative stimulation and everything else. Yeah. And it turns out, based on the success of this, you could probably queue up 6 more of these for the next 2 years or whatever it is. Yeah. But managing, do you do that? What's the right amount of input versus,
well, look, input? Losing my dad was a real thing for me, and it was important to me before losing him. But I spent a lot of my time, like, that customer wanted to meet me there on that day to order that board, and I'd always kind of cook my family to go and get that one order, right? Yeah. Because it was so reliant on me to get that work. That guy can wait now, and I'm not trying to say I'm above getting that order. I'm saying that guy isn't above my family now. My absolute, the order of importance is family at the top. That ain't going to budge. I don't care what the pay packet is, because money don't buy that, right, and time. And then it's surfing and shaping. That's it. I am more interested in the shaping and surfing of things than chasing a dollar. All right. So surfing is and experimenting and staying fresh in shaping is so important because the dollars will soon drain that if you're chasing the dollars and that's your main goal. You can have that. The guys that want that can have it. I'm out of that contest. I'm into the shaping and the surfing of my family, and opportunities like this come. The next time I come, I'm bringing my family.
That's
that's it. You know, and and it's good to get to this age and have that clarity though, because you know I was young and ambitious once, and I wanted this and that, and it didn't bring me any more happiness than an hour with my son. You know, I'll trade all that bullshit for, you know, just hanging out.
Well, good.
Yeah.
I feel like you said earlier, when you aligned the priorities correctly, then these business opportunities landed in your lap as well.
Yeah.
And so, by deprioritizing the dollar, I feel like it'll just find its way to you.
Yeah, yeah. It's that, and it took the whole trusting of the universe thing too. You know, it really is. I gladly say I've never got any idea of what's going on. You know, and I'll keep it that way. Thank you very much. I'll never want to be a businessman. I want to surf, shape, and hang with my family. And any benefit that can come of that, I still work hard.
Yeah, of course.
You know, there's no way around that.
No,
but
that's a guarantee.
Yeah. But no, man. I love my life, and I wasn't loving my life when I was pushing for all that other bullshit. My life wasn't happy then. I'm happy now, and you know, you inject that happiness into the blank, and it gives you the return. And likewise with your life, you know, if you try to get as much happiness with your family, and I genuinely love shaping. I genuinely love it. I like I said, if the bottom fell out of the industry tomorrow and there was no money to be made, I'm doing this at home in my shed after hours.
Yeah,
I don't need I don't need it to be a full-time job for me to want to do it. Yeah. The experimenting that's where it's at. The fun stuff.
Well, I wish you the safest of travels and fastest of travels tomorrow to get
home.
I
hope so too. Yeah. Thank you, mate.
But thanks for taking the time to do this.
Thank you for taking the time to speak to me, mate.
Thrilled to.
Thank you, mate.